The Tolkien Road, Episode 87, The Lord of the Rings, The White Rider, Part 1. Alright, go ahead. The Tolkien Road, 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 the Tolkien Road of Tolkien, the 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 Road of Tolkien The Tolkien Road.
The Tolkien Road.
The Tolkien Road. Hey there, fellow travelers. Welcome to the Tolkien Road, a long walk through Middle-earth. On this episode, we continue our journey through the Lord of the Rings with the first part of Book 3, Chapter 5, The White Rider. Before we get started, why not hop on over to iTunes and leave the Tolkien Road a rating and feedback? It's a great way to show your support for the show and takes less than a minute. Thanks for listening, and enjoy. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Tolkien Road. John here. Greta, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. How
Good.
are you?
Doing well.
Yeah?
Doing well.
Good.
Episode 87.
87.
Book 3, Chapter 5 of The Lord of the Rings. This is The White Rider, and we're going to continue on our Don't Be Hasty lesson from the Ents. We're dividing this chapter into two parts, even though it's not a particularly long chapter. We're trying to make far less haste through this thing.
Yep.
And really just, dig into every word.
Yeah.
Consider all the different meanings of, the definite articles that are scattered throughout.
I'm down with that. I love articles.
Yeah. We had a great discussion about dingles last time.
We did.
It was eye-opening. One of the best discussions in the history of the human race, basically.
I don't think anybody could argue with that.
Yeah.
Like, even a little bit.
I'm
I'm all for a less hasty approach.
So
I'm all for going deep and, enjoying the journey, not just looking forward to the destination.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We have a couple of notes from listeners to dig into.
That's awesome. I love notes. Love them.
All right. So Mary Grace, she sent along her haiku and also sent along a note. She said, "Dosh Garnet, that was a pretty amazing episode. And to be quite honest, my favorite since the Riders of Rohan episode." Well, awesome.
Oh, thanks,
Nice.
Mary Grace.
Nice. Well, she loves the Riders of Rohan.
She does
She
love
loves
the
that
Riders
chapter,
of Rohan.
you know?
Yes, I know that.
Yeah.
She and Josh, right?
I think so. I think Josh really likes that chapter too. Yeah. She says, "I have something to say about hobbits and Ents. In Chapter 2 of The Fellowship of the Ring, Sam and Ted Sandyman are talking about the queer events in the world, and Sam says, 'But what about these tree men, these giants, as you might call them? My cousin Hal saw one, as big as an elm tree, and walking.' And she says, 'So it proves that hobbits are sheltered, if you will, to the point that the great creatures of the world are but myths to them. But it's not as if they have never heard of Ents or dragons. But in their minds, they simply don't exist.' Just a note I thought you might find interesting." That is interesting.
That's
I
very interesting.
forgot. I remember talking about that when we did that chapter, but thanks for bringing it up again.
Mm-hmm.
There was that discussion of these like giants. That these tree men, right?
Right.
The discussion about tree men. So I remember that we had a good discussion about legend and that kind of thing back then. And then she gives her haiku, and then she leaves a postscript. She says to Greta, "I found an article that contained many Lord of the Rings hashtags, and since you like to keep it real, I suggest you keep it mithril. Party on and happy Thanksgiving to you both."
I love it.
So there you go. Keep it mithril.
If I were on Twitter, that would totally be my handle.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Keep it mithril.
Keep it mithril.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Thanks, Mary Grace.
Mary Grace was the one. I think she actually made a meme for us that was just the dwarf meme. Remember?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yes.
So.
Yes. Good stuff. Very good.
Happy Thanksgiving to you, Mary Grace.
Yes. Happy Thanksgiving to all of our listeners.
God bless us, everyone.
We are very thankful for you.
That's right.
And the time you spend listening to us gobble on.
Gobble, gobble, gobble.
About Tolkien and all of his works.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, indeedly doodly.
I was going to say jibber jabber, but gobble seems more appropriate.
He would sound like Mr. T if he'd said jibber jabber.
Jibber jabber. Oh, man. Mr. T. We better just
Stop all that
right
jibber
there.
jabber. All right. Let's
Another
see.
note?
Yeah, another note. So this one's from Matt Scarrants.
Matt.
And he says, "Hello, John and Greta. It's always great to go for a laugh on the Tolkien Road."
A laugh.
Yeah, like that.
I like that.
I mean,
a
last
lot.
episode was just the standard setter. You know, it was like everything. You know, everything kind of came together.
It really was kind of magical, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, who doesn't like to go for a laugh?
Darn Garshnart. Yeah.
It's
great.
Oh, yeah. Reliving our glory days.
Go back in good old episode 86.
Wait, is Matt from
days.
UK? Is this UK Matt, or is this somebody else?
I don't know. I'm actually not sure, but maybe Matt will tell us since you've asked the question.
Oh.
So.
Well, I thought we had somebody who was somebody UK.
Oh,
That's not Matt, though.
it's Greg UK.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But it stands for University of Kentucky in that case.
It does? No, it doesn't. Oh, stop it. You're getting me all confused. You know it's too
All right.
easy these days. All right, so Matt.
Let's go for another laugh on the Tolkien Road. He says
right now.
he has another poem. He sends a poem along, and then he sends a haiku. Matt, we'll get to your poems probably in the next episode because I think they're going to fit on the second half of this chapter better. But they look really good. I actually read through them once, and they are really good. So I'm looking forward to having them there.
Poems,
well, you can see it there. There's one
Oh.
there's one that's a, you know, not a long form, but it's longer than a haiku. And then there's a haiku.
Ah,
But
very
he says
cool.
also, I found something interesting regarding the Entwives. In the unpublished epilogue in The Lord of the Rings, Sam is writing down some questions and answers for his children regarding loose ends of the story. And this is what he says about the Entwives. Rosie Lass, Sam's daughter, very anxious about Entwives. She looks for them wherever she goes in a wood. Will they ever be found? She would like them to be. I should like the Entwives to be found too, but I'm afraid that trouble is too old and deep for Shire folk to mend. I think maybe Entwives do not want to be found, and maybe Ents are now tired of looking. And then Matt says, however, back in the beginning of Fellowship, Sam mentions that his cousin Halfast saw a tree walking up on the North Moors, so maybe the search isn't hopeless after all. So, nice.
I did not know there was an unpublished epilogue.
Well, yeah, like in the this big old library of books I have right here, the history of Middle Earth. There's all kinds of, there's all kinds of stuff.
Okay.
In there.
And that's where that came from about Sam's daughter.
I'm pretty sure he didn't give the actual reference, but I assume that's where it came from. That
Gotcha.
It's in there.
Yeah. Okay.
Like
Very cool.
These 4 books right here are all just on the Lord of the Rings and like the how the Lord of the Rings developed over time.
Got it.
Yeah.
Good
All right.
stuff, man. I think that was the whole Entwives thing is just very fascinating to me. I think it's yeah.
It's one of the Doshgarn best things about Lord of the Rings.
For sure.
Definitely.
Like for sure. Yeah. Thanks for writing in, Matt.
Yes, thank you, Matt. Thank you very much. And speaking of Ents, so we're going to continue on that vein. So that was a good little segue.
Oh, okay.
So I wanted to read this a little bit. I was researching the current chapter in Tolkien's letters, and I found this interesting little footnote. This is a footnote to a letter that he sent to W.H. Auden, who was a famous poet. You know what? Let's even look this up. Let's look up real quick. What was Auden's most famous poem? Because I know I've read some poems by him, and I really like him.
Is it Auden or
Auden?
Like with starts with an A?
A-U-D-N.
A-U-D-N.
Right.
What's his first name?
Well, let's find out.
W.H. Auden.
Yeah. Wystan Hugh.
Oh, Wystan Hugh. That's a good British name. Oh, sorry.
I don't know what that was.
I don't know what that was either.
I don't know what that was.
Wystan. I've never heard that name before.
So
he was a poet.
Yeah.
And he knew it.
And he knowed it. Let's see. What was his most famous? I feel like none of the poems that I see the names of are ringing a bell for me, but anyway. So he's a well-known poet. His name is a pretty famous name amongst like 20th century.
And he and Tolkien were contemporaries?
Yes.
Okay.
So So, this note is this footnote is from a letter that Tolkien wrote to Auden,
Okay.
who had reviewed the Fellowship of the
So
Ring.
wait, was it from a footnote?
This is a footnote in this letter, right?
Oh.
Yeah.
Got it.
Tolkien wrote long letters, and he liked footnotes.
So wait, he put a footnote to his own letter?
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever done that. Have you ever done that?
I've
I've only put footnotes in academic papers.
Maybe you should write more interesting letters.
Maybe I should. That require footnotes. That's got to be a darn interesting.
Greta needs a pen pal, everybody. All right.
One that likes footnotes.
That's right. Just nothing but footnotes. Like I have one sentence in the whole letter and everything else a footnote.
Today I went to the store. Footnote. Store, as in Publix, to get more coffee.
That's right. While I was at the store, I had this thought. I had this very interesting thought and had an epiphany that revealed to me the meaning of life. All right. So here we go. He says, take the Ents. So he makes the footnote to this little statement. The Lord of the Rings as a story was finished so long ago now that I can take a largely impersonal view of it and find interpretations quite amusing. Even those that I might make myself, which are mostly postscriptum. I had very little particular conscious intellectual intention in mind at any point. And he says, and so the footnote jumps off from there and says, take the Ents, for instance. I did not consciously invent them at all. The chapter called Treebeard, from Treebeard's first remark on page 66, was written off, more or less, as it stands, with an effect on myself, except for labor pains, almost like reading someone else's work. That's just cool. That's a cool little thought right there. Like, Tolkien's basically saying there, like, he doesn't feel like he really invented much about the Ents. He feels like he was just kind of a channel for them, like for some higher inspiration.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like it when an artist takes that view. And I mean, I've made some things in my life where I feel like that was what happened, rather than me like trying to like putting in all this effort to like I got to think of something cool to make happen here, but instead it just kind of flows out of you.
Right.
He actually spoke a lot of Leaf by Niggle in that same way. The story Leaf by Niggle, which is interesting. They both have to do with trees, but
that is really interesting.
He continues, and I like Ents now because they do not seem to have anything to do with me. I dare say something had been going on in the unconscious for some time, and that accounts for my feeling throughout, especially when stuck, that I was not inventing but reporting imperfectly, and had at times to wait till what really happened came through. But looking back analytically, I should say that Ents are composed of philology, literature, and life. They owe their name to the Eld Enta Geveork of Anglo-Saxon, which means old creations of giants, and their connection with stone. Their part in the story is due, I think, to my bitter disappointment and disgust from school days with the shabby use made in Shakespeare of the coming of Great Burnham Wood to high Dunsinane Hill. So that's a reference to Macbeth, where towards the end of Macbeth, the army that comes to destroy Macbeth, like they basically like hide in this forest, or they pretend like they're a forest and they like move themselves, and it's just it's one of the goofier parts of Macbeth, even though Macbeth is an amazing, wonderful play. It's this part that seems to generate a lot of critical discussion, because it's just like, this is just kind of cheap. Like, why would Macbeth have looked out and seen these trees coming and and think like, there's some, that's nothing to worry about there. It's just the forest moving towards me. So. It's this part in Macbeth that, so basically Tolkien is saying like he was disappointed that Shakespeare didn't do more with that scene and use that scene better, because he liked the idea, but he just didn't use it to the maybe its utmost. So he thinks that his disappointment with that as a child reading Macbeth
is what
fed into the creation of the Ents kind of subconsciously.
Okay.
He says, I long to devise a setting in which the trees might really march to war. And into this has crept a mere piece of experience, the difference of the male and female attitude to wild things, the difference between unpossessive love and gardening. So, there you go. So, just an interesting footnote about Ents. As we were coming to a close on the chapter, it's just all about Ents. And the Ents will come up again in Lord of the Rings, of course, but just some really interesting, behind-the-scenes sort of thoughts from Tolkien going on there.
J.R.R. himself.
Yeah.
Cool.
And you get a little insight to what he was doing with Entwives as well, and talking about the difference of the male and female attitude to wild things, and then the difference between unpossessive love and gardening.
So what does he mean by that?
I don't know. I was just thinking, like, I don't know what he means by that.
Unpossessive love. Because that's why the Entwives left, right? Was because they wanted to garden. Like, they couldn't, there's too much shade in the forest, right? So they needed to go to, like, the meadows where they could grow pretty flowers and stuff.
Right.
But I wonder what the unpossessive love, what that's about.
I don't know.
Love that is not possessive.
Well, that theme, I mean, the theme of unpossessive love is a pretty big one with Tolkien, especially when when you look at, my book, Tolkien's Requiem, on Beren and Luthien, talks a lot about that whole idea, right, of, like, love that's kind of a poisoned love because it's all about possessing something. Right? And so possession, it doesn't necessarily mean romantic love. It could just be possession of a thing, right? And being like, my precious, right? That's not a good love.
It's a greedy love.
It's a kind of, it's a distorted sort of love, right? Or a false love, maybe.
But that's what he's saying. He's saying with the unpossessive love, though, that's a true love. Right. So he's saying that the love between the Ents and the Entwives was a true love.
I don't know. I really don't know what he's saying without asking him, and I don't want to speculate too much, but but that's what he said.
Yep.
If anybody else wants to throw out a few thoughts, on that.
Yeah. That would be nice.
Yeah. Sorry, that passage really moved me. Sorry.
Everything's fine.
Yeah.
He's still breathing, I promise you.
I'm fine.
I just couldn't get enough of my hot chocolate.
That was some darn Garshnart good hot chocolate.
I know, it was good. It's probably some of my best. Anyways. I really love that idea that the creation of the Entwives was such an intrinsic, like, natural thing. That it just kind of happened. It was organic.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds like it. And the Ents as well,
Well, the Ents were organic, yeah.
Yeah.
Their creation and they themselves are organic and all natural.
Right.
Yeah.
Right on.
Cool.
Yeah, pretty nifty little note about the Ents.
Yeah. I like the Ents a lot.
All right, let's talk about chapter 5.
Okay.
Moving on.
All right.
So how would you react if someone you thought was dead was suddenly alive and just, like, appeared to you and they were alive?
And they were, like, for real alive.
Yeah, not like zombie alive, not that way. Not like
alive.
Undead.
Not like a vision.
Yeah, not ghost alive either, but like
I think I would be at first terrified. I think it'd be a range of emotion. I think I would be terrified, and then I would be in shock, and then I would just start, like, joyful tears abound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, as long as it was somebody you wanted to see alive.
Right.
Yeah.
I assumed it was. What's weird? Why did I assume that it would be somebody I wanted to see alive?
Well, I was assuming we were talking about Adolf Hitler. So, if you want to see Adolf Hitler alive, it's.
That's so weird that when you mentioned that, I just assumed that you were, like, somebody that you would want to see alive.
No, I hear you. Like, so you basically would go from, like, fear to wonder to joy, is what you're saying?
I used the word shock.
Yeah.
But I guess wonder and shock are kind of like disbelief.
Yeah, that's kind of the phases they seem to go through in this chapter. I think I'd probably react the same way.
You think you would?
Yeah.
What if it was somebody that you didn't want to see alive?
If it was somebody I didn't want to see alive?
Would you run away?
I'd just punch him in the face.
Scream and run away?
Just punch him in the face. That's my answer to every, problem that I don't know how to deal with.
Punch him in the face.
I'd be like, shut up. They'd be like, I didn't say anything, but here I am.
Yeah.
No, I'd probably react the same way you said.
I can't imagine that anybody that you would... I feel like if somebody's going to come back from the dead, like, they're going to appear to the people who want to see them.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to go seeking out their enemies first.
I don't know. There's some vengeful people out there.
Maybe I'm just too much of a half full kind of girl.
Maybe. Well, so that's kind of the topic of this chapter, obviously, because we get Gandalf back, right? So, but let's see how we arrive there. So, we pick up with the chapter, and they're right on the edge of Fangorn Forest, and they've come upon all the dead orcs that the riders of Rohan killed, and they're searching for some kind of sign of Merry and Pippin. However, there's this old man that appeared to them overnight, and gave them a hard time and scared away their horses. Right. And so they're kind of like...
He didn't do anything to them, though, right?
No. And that's the weird thing.
Yeah, that is the weird thing. They refer to it as a riddle.
Mm-hmm. It is a riddle.
Because it's not like the horses reacted in a scared way.
Yeah, well, they mention that. So Aragorn says, "I'm thinking of the horses. You said last night, Gimli, that they were scared away, but I did not think so. Did you hear them, Legolas? Did they sound to you like beasts in terror?" And Legolas says, "No, I heard them clearly. But for the darkness and our own fear, I should have guessed that they were beasts wild with some sudden gladness. They spoke as horses will when they meet a friend that they have long missed." And Aragorn says, "I cannot read the riddle unless they return." And they move on from there. But, I don't know enough about horses to know how different horses sound when they're scared versus when they're happy and just like so happy that they decide to run off. Right.
I don't either.
Okay.
I don't either.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But I guess there's a difference. I guess there's a difference between...
Well, at least a difference that an elf
horse
can
terror
tell.
and horse joy.
I mean, Legolas is pretty much like a horse master, right? Mm-hmm. So he would know.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
Well, I mean, Strider is too. Aragorn is too. He's a ranger, for crying out loud.
Well, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, so they would know.
They would know, but I don't
Gimli wouldn't know.
No, Gimli wouldn't know, and like you or I wouldn't know.
Right.
But somebody who's really into horses.
So it makes sense that, whose word are you going to trust on this? Well, probably Aragorn or Legolas.
Right.
And I could see that there would be a difference between...
Yeah, I would think so too.
But still, it's kind of like, I'd be like, well, okay, maybe this old man didn't mean to cause us any harm, but why the heck did he have to scare away our horses?
Right. Yeah.
That's kind of messed up.
Yeah, because they need the horses.
It's not exactly a way of saying, "Hey, buddy, how you doing? Just let your horse go." Like, not the...
Yeah. Not the best
Greta,
offer of
I've
friendship.
got great news. I just let your horse go. Thanks, John.
Maybe he brought some really special magic carrots with him. And
probably.
They just couldn't resist.
Probably. So they were just giddy over the carrots.
They were just giddy over the carrots.
They were like, yes!
Well, they were special magical carrots.
Special magical carrots?
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Not to be confused with magic mushrooms, but magical carrots.
Mm-hmm. Magical mushrooms like the ones on Super Mario Brothers.
Right.
Make you big.
Make you big.
Yeah.
Not like that, but just really tasty. Like maybe carrots that taste like an entire Thanksgiving dinner in one bite. Like something like that.
Don't you think that would be kind of disappointing though, if you like took a bite of something and it was like, and then it tasted like you ate an entire Thanksgiving dinner?
No.
Because it's like, don't you want to? Isn't part of the fun of eating Thanksgiving dinner like the whole eating of every single bite, not just one bite?
No, you'd eat the whole carrot. So like the first bite would taste like turkey.
Mm-hmm.
The second bite would taste like, I don't know, sweet potato casserole. The third bite would taste like, I don't know, what else?
Schnozberries.
Schnozberries, sure.
Yeah.
Schnozberries. The fourth one would maybe taste like pecan pie.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Anyway.
This sounds like something out of Harry Potter.
It does sound a little bit. You're thinking it's probably making you think of Bertie Bott's.
Oh, yeah.
Every flavored bean or whatever.
Yeah.
Gross.
All right.
We don't let our children buy those anymore. Ever since they tricked me into eating a vomit one. Whoa.
Oh, gosh.
That was horrible. Sorry. All right.
Made it grossing everybody out. All right.
I know.
All right. Old man. Horse scare.
Horse stealer.
Horse stealer. Shows up and they're trying to figure out who old man horse scarer.
But they don't talk to him or anything, right?
No.
Like when he comes, there's no interaction with the company.
Well, I think they try to interact with him and he doesn't.
He doesn't respond.
He refuses to interact.
Okay.
Anyway, so they're left without horses and they're trying to figure out where Merry and Pippin are because they can't find Merry and Pippin's bodies, which is a hopeful sign,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, they want to know what what became
Where
of
are
them.
they? Yeah.
So they're trying to piece this all together. They go searching through all the stuff that's left over. They find a large pale leaf of golden hue, now fading and turning brown, and it's a malorn leaf, and the kind of leaves that hold limbus. So they look at that and they think that's a good sign, but they can't figure out for the life of them how the hobbits managed to get away, because there's all these signs that point to like, cutting their
Their bands off.
the bands off.
Yeah.
But they're like, how did they manage to pull that off? Because they were bound, all bound up in the first place. Who let them go?
Right. And how could they have eaten with their hands tied? And yeah.
So Aragorn tries to put it all together, and he says, I do not know how it happened, nor do I know why an orc was carrying them away. Not to help them to escape, we may be sure. Nay, rather I think that I now begin to understand a matter that has puzzled me from the beginning. Why, when Boromir had fallen, were the orcs content with the capture of Merry and Pippin? They did not seek out the rest of us, nor attack our camp, but instead they went with all speed toward Isengard. Did they suppose they had captured the ring-bearer and his faithful comrade? I think not. Their masters would not dare to give such plain orders to orcs, even if they knew so much themselves. They would not speak openly to them of the ring. They are not trusty servants. But I think the orcs had been commanded to capture hobbits alive at all costs. An attempt was made to slip out with the precious prisoners before the battle. Treachery, perhaps, likely enough with such folk. Some large and bold orc may have been trying to escape with the prize alone, for his own ends. There, that is my tale. Others may be devised, but on this we may count in any case. One at least of our friends escaped. It is our task to find him and help him before we return to Rohan. We must not be daunted by Fangorn, since need drove him into that dark place. So, Aragorn is able to kind of piece together, kind of theorize that, the orcs were on a mission to bring the hobbits back in particular.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, that was the particular part of their mission, but the orcs' ability to be treacherous towards one another and everyone else got the best of them,
Right.
and they failed in their mission somehow.
Yeah.
So they have a good feeling that they might still be alive inside the forest. So
I
they
was
decide to follow
impressed.
them into the forest.
I know Aragorn's a ranger and all, but I was impressed by how close he got to actually hitting the nail on the head with this one.
Yeah, I mean, he's smart.
He's smart.
Yeah.
He'd make a good detective.
And good king.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But a good detective too.
And a good detective. Yes.
A good detective king.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. A king that moonlights as a detective.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So they have a brief little discussion about whether Fangorn is evil. And it's interesting to me, like, the way that in their view of the world here, they consider like different forests and whether they're evil or not. Like what kind of spirit that forest kind of inhabits that forest,
Right.
Because that's just totally not a way we look at at things like that nowadays, right? We don't look at forests and say, oh, that's an evil forest,
Right. Yeah.
So they go through and they kind of classify the different forests. Is that here? I thought that was here, but now I'm thinking maybe I'm.
Well, they kind of compare it to Mirkwood.
Right, which Mirkwood is an evil forest.
Right, and they say that Fangorn seems like there's more light.
Right.
But they still say that Fangorn is stuffy.
Yeah.
Like there's just kind of this kind of weight in the air.
Yeah, they say no. Legolas says, "No, it is not evil, or what evil is in it is far away. I catch only the faintest echoes of dark places where the hearts of the trees are black. There is no malice near us, but there is watchfulness and anger." Mm-hmm. And Gimli says, "Well, it has no cause to be angry with me. I have done it no harm." And Legolas says, "This is just as well, but nonetheless it has suffered harm. There is something happening inside or going to happen. Do you not feel the tenseness? It takes my breath." Mm-hmm. So Legolas is really in tune, and he can kind of tell that there's not necessarily evil, but there is sort of
unrest.
There is sort of an anger
Yeah.
and an unrest, that's going on in the
There's
forest.
no peace.
Right. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Which is interesting, because I wonder, because obviously at this point, well, yeah, so at this point, Merry and Pippin are with Treebeard,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they could be at Entmoot, right?
Right.
So I wonder if this unrest and this anger was kind of heightened
Yeah.
by the meeting. You know what I mean? I guess I just wonder if they had come to Fangorn maybe a week prior, would they have gotten the same feeling?
Well, Treebeard seemed to be aware of, that Saruman was up to bad stuff even before the Hobbit showed
and I know
up.
that he didn't like Saruman or Sauron, but
Saruman.
But I'm just wondering if that feeling that Legolas is picking up on, if it was kind of heightened.
Well, it probably is heightened at this point. Yeah,
this
I mean,
point.
because of the Entmoot and everything.
Right.
But I don't think it's like a brand new thing just because of the Entmoot. I think it's because I think it had been going on for a while.
Because the trees have been so mistreated and.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Saruman has a mind of metal and wheels, right?
Yep.
So.
Industry. Boo.
All right. Okay, so they continue on, make their way a little further into the woods, and they arrive at Treebeard's Hill, which they don't know to be Treebeard's Hill.
Right.
And they climb the rock wall, and they look out from the rock wall, and they can't see every direction, but they can see a good ways to the east. And they see, all these trees descending in ranks towards the plain from which they had come, which is an interesting way of putting it because, when we talk about like a tree army marching off to war, Tolkien specifically describes them being in ranks towards the plains from which they had come, right? So it's almost as if the narrator doesn't come right out and say this, but it's almost as if they're like aligning themselves in ranks, to go.
Yeah, I didn't even pick up on that, but you're right.
Now they don't pick up on it, like it doesn't trigger anything for them, but
right.
That word right there is an interesting word to use in this case.
Mm-hmm. Given the impending march.
Right.
Yes.
So at that point, as they're looking out, Legolas, because he has really, really keen vision, he's able to see that the old man is back, and he's followed them into the forest.
Right.
And so he spies him out, and he tells the other two. And he says, "Down in the wood, back in the way that we have just come, it is he. Cannot you see him passing from tree to tree?" And Gimli says, "Look, Aragorn, did I not warn you? There's the old man, all in dirty gray rags. That is why I could not see him at first." So they get into the defensive real quick because here it is. They seem to be, the old man is coming towards them. They seem to be about to, have to face off with him.
Right.
And Gimli is just like, "Go ahead and take a shot at him, Legolas."
Because he's convinced that it's Saruman.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gimli is convinced it's Saruman. But Aragorn and Legolas, both are not quite ready to pull the trigger on him yet. They say, Legolas has his bow and bends it, but he's more watchful than ready to strike.
Right.
And Aragorn
he doesn't
says,
put an arrow in it.
Aragorn says, "Legolas is right. We may not shoot an old man so at unawares and unchallenged, whatever fear or doubt be on us. Watch and wait." So again, it's like Aragorn is good people. Like, I don't know if I was in the forest, if I would,
if you would.
This guy just let my horses go. If I would be
right?
like, well, maybe I shouldn't shoot him.
That's definitely not the natural instinct.
But when you're a ranger, you're a little bit more like, come on, I'm a ranger. I can take him.
I can take him.
Yeah. If it really push comes to shove, I got this.
Right. Yeah. Got that confidence.
But I'd rather not have an old man's blood on my hands.
Right. Right. Especially an innocent old man.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. However, what's interesting is that as the man comes closer, he finally, he sees them, and their eyes meet, and he's described as being hooded and wearing a wide-brimmed hat, so that all of his features are overshadowed except for the end of his nose and his gray beard. but they can see the Aragorn can catch the gleam of keen eyes, eyes keen and bright from within the shadow of his hooded brows. And the man says, "Well met, my friends. I wish to speak to you. Will you come down, or shall I come up?" And then he begins to climb without really waiting for them to answer.
Mm-hmm.
Gimli's like, "Okay, now's the time. Shoot." But Legolas, the old man says, "Put away that bow, Master Elf," and the bow and arrow fall from Legolas' hands, and his arms hung loose at his sides. So Legolas is like somehow disarmed by this old man.
Right.
Some kind of magic disarms Legolas.
Yes.
And the same thing happens to Gimli.
Wizard, obviously.
Yeah, same thing happens to Gimli, which probably they're thinking, it's definitely Saruman now. He's taking away our weapons, and
right. Who did you think it was?
I've read this so many times.
I know you read it, but can you remember
the first time I read it?
Yeah.
I might have thought it was Saruman.
Yeah.
Because I don't think I knew that the first time I read this. I don't think I knew that because I'd only seen the first movie at that point. I don't think I knew that Gandalf came back. Yeah.
It's funny. I know I've read this before, but it's been so long. I feel like I'm reading it afresh this time. And at first, I thought it might be Tom Bombadil.
Oh yeah.
I don't know why. Maybe because he was little. And then when they mentioned the cloak and the hat, I was like, oh, maybe it's Radagast. But I never really bought into the fact that it was Saruman. Mm-hmm. I thought that was a little like Tolkien, you're too good for that. Like that would be way too.
Yeah, too obvious.
Yeah, that'd be too predictable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think.
I also didn't think it was who it was either. Who it turned out to be.
You didn't?
Mm-mm.
This time when you were reading it, you didn't?
No, I can't remember. I feel like we talked about this, and I may have thought it was Gandalf, but I don't.
Well, you knew that Gandalf returned, right?
I knew that Gandalf returned, but
yeah.
I didn't. I don't know. I can't remember. But yeah, for some reason I was reading it today. I was convinced it was Tom Bombadil. Maybe
Weird.
I just really wanted to see Tom again.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Little Tommy boy.
Yeah.
Well, it's definitely, it's obvious from his powers, from his ability to disarm Legolas and Gimli that
it's a wizard.
He's powerful, that it's a wizard. And at that, they still don't know who it is, and he starts a conversation with them. And he seems to be friendly. He's well met, I say again. And what may you be doing in these parts? An elf, a man, and a dwarf, all clad in elvish fashion. No doubt there is a tale worth hearing behind it all. Such things are not often seen here. So they have a little bit of a conversation. And the man says, "There are some who would begin to doubt whether your errand is fit to tell. Happily, I know something of it. You are tracking the footsteps of 2 young hobbits, I believe. Yes, hobbits. Don't stare as if you had never heard the strange name before. You have, and so have I. Well, they climbed up here the day before yesterday, and they met someone that they did not expect. Does that comfort you? And now you would like to know where they were taken? Well, maybe I can give you some news about that. But why are you standing? Why are we standing? Your errand, you see, is no longer as urgent as you thought. Let us sit down and be more at ease." Gandalf, they don't know it's Gandalf yet. Gimli, Gandalf whoever this is seems to kind of let go of the spell that he put over them, where they couldn't grasp their weapons.
Right.
So they're able to pick up their weapons again. They're like, well, that's interesting. And the old man at that throws off his gray cloak, and he shows himself to be clad all in white. And Gimli, of course, says, "Saruman, speak, tell us where you have hidden our friends. What have you done with them? Speak, or I will make a dent in your hat that even a wizard will find it hard to deal with." But again, the old man is too quick. Mm-hmm. He disarms them all, including Aragorn this time. Aragorn's sword becomes starts to blaze with a sudden fire, so he can't grasp it. Gimli's axe leaps out of his hands, and Legolas shoots an arrow straight up, high into the air, and it vanishes in flame. So this is a powerful wizard. But immediately, Legolas knows.
Is the one that recognizes him first. Yeah. Mithrandir.
They all gazed at him. His hair was snow. Why don't you read this part? They all gazed at him. His hair was white as snow.
They all gazed at him. His hair was white as snow in the sunshine, and gleaming white was his robe. The eyes under his deep brows were bright, piercing as the rays of the sun. Power was in his hand. Between wonder, joy, and fear, they stood and found no words to say. At last Aragorn stirred. "Gandalf," he said, "beyond all hope you returned to us in our need. What veil was over my sight? Gandalf!" Gimli said nothing, but sank to his knees, shading his eyes. "Gandalf," the old man repeated, as if recalling from old memory a long disused word. "Yes, that was the name. I was Gandalf." He stepped down from the rock, and picking up his gray cloak, wrapped it about him. It seemed as if the sun had been shining, but now was hid in cloud again. "Yes, you may still call me Gandalf," he said, and the voice was the voice of their old friend and guide. "Get up, my good Gimli. No blame to you, and no harm done to me. Indeed, my friends, none of you have any weapon that could hurt me. Be merry. We meet again, at the turn of the tide. The great storm is coming, but the tide has turned."
So, I find that interesting where he says, "None of you have any weapon that could hurt me."
Mm-hmm.
You know.
It's like he's immortal.
Yeah, and you know, I feel like there's instances later on in the story where it seems like he could be in peril, but apparently their weapons aren't capable of hurting him. So I don't know what is capable of hurting him at this point, but
yeah, I don't know. Is there anything?
I mean, it seems like there must be, or else he could just like walk right up to Sauron and take him on, right?
True.
I don't know.
That is true.
Anyway,
it's a good point.
But it's interesting to know that he says, that no weapon of theirs could hurt him.
Right.
And what he says just a bit later is he said, "I am white now." He says, "Indeed, I am Saruman, one might almost say. Saruman as he should have been." Remember, Saruman was supposed to be the leader of the Astari, right? And he was supposed to be the reason he was Saruman the White was kind of a sign of his ultimate leadership, right? And his leadership of the mission that the Astari came to Middle Earth to fulfill. But he failed in that mission, So we have a good discussion about that on the episode we did probably 10 or 15 episodes ago on Gandalf and the Astari.
Yes.
Yeah, if you want to go back and listen to that, but we go really in depth on their whole story. But yeah, Gandalf is almost like he's taken over Saruman's spot. He's come back and he's taken over Saruman's spot.
He's like a good version of Saruman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
An uncorrupted version of Saruman. Yeah, so they begin talking about the hobbits, and Gandalf hasn't seen them either. Hasn't been able to find them, but an eagle told him that they were captive by the orcs. Remember back earlier on, a few chapters ago, they had seen something flying high in the air, and I don't think they knew what it was at that time.
No, I don't think they did. And they didn't know if it was good or evil.
Right. But it turns out it was Gwaihir the Windlord, who was the great eagle. And of course, you remember that from the Silmarillion that the eagles were, almost like creatures and emissaries of Manwë, right? Yes. Manwë, the great Valar. So, apparently Gandalf works, can get their services when he needs to, which is, I guess, another sign of the mission that Gandalf has been entrusted with,
Yes. And also how...
But the eagles will actually cooperate with him.
Right, but he's really just one step removed, right, from the Valar, so...
Yeah.
It seems like they should cooperate with him no matter what. Regardless of the mission. No?
The eagle...
Or are they like Manwë's pets?
I don't know if they want to be called pets, but they're some of his greatest creations, right?
Yeah, okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because he's Manwë is the Valar of the air, right? Like he's the... and so they're almost like an extension of him, right? In a way.
Yes. Okay. That makes sense. So yeah, it's like you said, he's got friends in high places. This Gandalf.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe want to find that. Do I have my copy of the Silmarillion in here? How in the world can I not have my copy of the Silmarillion?
I don't know. That's embarrassing.
Yeah. I'll have to bring it in here. Wanted to find the bit where it talks about that with the eagles, but that's all right. So they talk about the ring a bit, and it turns out the ring, Gandalf admits the ring has passed beyond his help, or the help of any of the company that set out from Rivendell. And he said it was nearly revealed to the enemy, but it escaped. I had some part in that, for I sat in a high place, and I strove with the dark tower, and the shadow passed. And so do you remember on Aemon Will at the end of Fellowship when Frodo, he's up on, he runs up on the hill and he puts the ring on.
Yeah.
And he looks
from
over.
Boromir?
Yeah, and he looks out over like the whole sweep, because he's up on this really high place. He looks out over this whole sweep, and he sees all these different things, and the eye starts to pull him in when he looks towards Mordor.
Yep.
And then he hears this voice saying like, "Take it off, fool! Take it off, you fool! Take it off."
Oh yeah.
So that's
that was Gandalf.
Yeah.
We talked about that, didn't we?
Mm-hmm.
Because we were talking about who do we think? Cause it doesn't say who said that, right?
Right.
But I remember us theorizing that Gandalf.
Because that's when the ring was very nearly revealed to the enemy.
So we were right. It was Gandalf saying that.
Right.
It sounded like a very Gandalf thing to say.
Right.
Calling his friends fools.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Fly, you fools! Take it off, you fools! Yeah, fool.
Mm-hmm.
Calling you a fool. Gandalf's like Mr. T in that way.
He is.
He pities the fool.
He pities the fool.
That's right.
Pity the fool who Mr. Gandalf.
How did this episode become about Mr. T?
I don't know. Who started
This is the second time he's come up.
That is the second time he's come up.
Stay in school.
Don't do drugs.
Don't do drugs. That's right.
What was that skit? There was that awesome skit. Is that from like Saturday Night Live or?
There was it's a Saturday. It is from Saturday Night Live, but it's like because there was like a Mr. T cartoon on when we were kids.
Yeah.
And then on Saturday Night Live they did a spoof of that cartoon, and it's Mr. T is out of work, so he needs.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
I need work.
I need work.
And at the end I think he says he like conflates all the different things. He's like,
don't do school.
Don't do school. Stay in drugs. Don't do school. Yeah.
Yeah. Mr. T.
Mr. T. And Mr. T and his patio furniture.
Mr. T.
Yes.
What?
Remember there's a Mr. T's patio furniture where we live.
Oh, along the highway there?
Yeah, we bought the thing from there.
I don't think it was Mr. T.
Yeah, because we asked him about being Mr. T.
Oh.
We asked the people there about does Mr. T actually own this place or who is that? And anyway.
Funny, I'd forgotten about that.
How in the world did that come up?
I don't know. Anyway. What? Gandalf would probably like Mr. T's patio furniture.
He would.
He would. I can just see him sitting under the umbrella.
Calling everybody fools.
Drinking his, whatever
was
his drink. His Entdraft.
Probably.
Drought.
Drought.
Eating a breakfast.
All right. And so Gandalf had some part had a big part in ensuring that that the ring was not given away to the
dark
enemy.
Side. Yeah. Right. That they would not become aware of its whereabouts.
Yeah, so they want to know something about how Frodo is, but Gandalf doesn't really know anything. He says he was saved from great peril, but many lie before him still. He resolved to go alone to Mordor, and he set out. That is all that I can say. But Legolas says, not alone. We think that Sam went with him. And Gandalf kind of is happy at that and smiles a little bit and says,
why wouldn't he know? Why wouldn't Gandalf know that Sam went with him?
I don't know, because he wasn't there.
But he knows that that Frodo left.
Yeah. But I don't know that he knows enough to know that Sam went with him, right? Because initially Frodo was just going to go by himself.
Oh, right. Oh, I see. Because that would have happened after.
Yeah, Gandalf isn't like omniscient. I think he was just, for some reason, he was able to...
He was only present in that moment.
In that moment, okay. Yeah. For whatever reason. I'm not sure why, but he was. Okay.
But he doesn't know what happened.
That's the thing. There's a lot... Tolkien talks a lot about this. There's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes that Tolkien had a pretty good idea of, but he doesn't spell it all out because he likes to leave that, that kind of supernatural element more mysterious and unexplained, right?
I think he likes to give his readers the opportunity to use their imaginations as well.
Yeah.
So that's part of the fun of it.
Absolutely. So at the news that Sam went with him, Gandalf says, "Did he indeed? It is news to me, yet it does not surprise me. Good. Very good. You lighten my heart. You must tell me more. Now sit by me and tell me the tale of your journey." So that's where we'll end that chapter.
Okay.
Or this part of the chapter. Yeah.
Yes.
We'll leave off there and pick up the discussion there next time. I wanted to talk about there's another letter that I read, and some people complain about like a character, especially like a character coming back from the dead, like as bad storytelling. And I can see why they would, that it's like...
I think it's kind of like cheating.
Yeah, exactly. That's a word that a lot of people...
Yeah.
Like, in one of... in the letter I'm about to read, that's a word that he says he got accused of in bringing Gandalf back from the dead. But, of course, for Tolkien, especially being a devout Christian, that was totally within the realm of possibility for him. Yeah. But also, to say all this stuff about cheating when you're talking about a fantasy world like Lord of the Rings, I mean, it's a little bit silly, but at the same time, you want there to be a certain level of realism within the world that you've created, right? You want there to be an eternal realism,
yes,
within the world itself. So I don't see it as a problem at all that Gandalf comes back from the dead, especially, and so I'll read this letter instead of blabbing on about it, and Tolkien, I think, has some good points he makes. So this is letter... this is letter 156 to Robert Murray, who is a Jesuit. And he says...
a Jesuit priest?
Yeah, I think a Jesuit priest who Tolkien corresponded with.
Okay.
He says, "As for Gandalf, surely it is not to join Peter Hastings to voice any criticism." Peter Hastings was another guy that Tolkien wrote a particularly long letter to, which we will probably look at some point. But Hastings, Tolkien continues, "I could be much more destructive myself. There are, I suppose, always defects in any large-scale work of art, and especially in those of literary form that are founded on an earlier matter which is put to new uses, like Homer, or Beowulf, or Virgil, or Greek, or Shakespearean tragedy. In which class, as a class not as a competitor, the Lord of the Rings really falls, though it is only founded on the author's own first draft. I think the way in which Gandalf's return is presented is a defect, and one other critic, as much under the spell as yourself, curiously used the same expression, cheating. That is partly due to the ever-present compulsions of narrative technique. He must return at that point, and such explanations of his survival as are explicitly set out must be given there. But the narrative is urgent and must not be held up for elaborate discussions involving the whole mythological setting. It is a little impeded even so, though I have severely cut Gandalf's accounts of himself. I might perhaps have made more clear the later remarks in Volume 2 and Volume 3 which refer to or are made by Gandalf, but I have purposely kept all allusions to the higher matters down to mere hints, perceptible only by the most attentive, or kept them under unexplainable symbolic forms. So God and the angelic gods, the lords or powers of the West, only peep through in such places as Gandalf's conversations with Frodo. Behind that there was something else at work, beyond any design of the ringmakers, or in Faramir's Númenórean grace at dinner. Gandalf really died and was changed, for that seems to me the only real cheating, to represent anything that can be called death as making no difference. I am Gandalf the White, who has returned from death. Probably he should rather have said to Wormwood, I have not passed through death, not fire and flood, to bandy crooked words with the serving man, and so on. He's saying, I have not passed through death to bandy crooked words with the serving man, and so on. I might say much more, but it would only be in perhaps tedious elucidation of the mythological ideas in my mind. It would not, I fear, get rid of the fact that the return of Gandalf is as presented in this book a defect, and one I was aware of, and probably did not work hard enough to mend. But Gandalf is not, of course, a human being. There are naturally no precise modern terms to say what he was. I would venture to say that he was an incarnate angel, strictly as I think that's Agelos. That is, with the other Astari wizards, those who know, an emissary from the Lords of the West, sent to Middle-earth as the great crisis of Sauron loomed on the horizon. By incarnate, I mean they were embodied in physical bodies capable of pain and weariness, and of afflicting the spirit with physical fear, and of being killed. Though supported by the angelic spirit, they might endure long, and only show slowly the wearing of care and labor. So all that is to say that, for the initial readers who didn't know much about Tolkien's mythology and who the wizards really were, it might have seemed like cheating for Gandalf to die, right? Or to come back, to return.
To not stay dead.
Exactly. But for when you understand the full picture of Tolkien's mythology, it no longer looks like that, right? Because like this, Gandalf was an immortal spirit, right? I mean, Gandalf in the first place, his body wasn't really a part of him. He was kind of clothed in it, right?
Right.
It wasn't a part of him like our bodies are a part of us, right? Gandalf is really just pure spirit who happens to wear this clothing. He's been given this clothing of a body to wear, while he's on this mission.
Right.
So for him to come back is, perfectly fitting with the mythology of
and also
Tolkien's world.
Tolkien's religious.
Yeah, but I don't think Tolkien even appeals to that very much here.
No, he doesn't. Right.
Now you can consider that, you can add that in, but and I think the resurrection of Gandalf is supposed to have, when you look at the whole picture of how Tolkien tries to connect this story to the story of it is being like, a story that takes place in the same world where the incarnation and the resurrection all happen, that all starts to make much more sense. And you can definitely see this as like a precursor of that resurrection, of the resurrection of Jesus, right?
Absolutely.
But anyway, Tolkien admits that as it's presented, it seems like a defect, but it's really not.
But it's really not.
So anyway, I thought that was an interesting
That is really interesting, and I feel like
because I will say it bugs me when I read, if I hear if I'm watching a TV show or a story and it's like somebody, like I kind of hate it when somebody seems to die and then they just come back from the dead, or like you thought they were dead and then they come back, like unless there's like a really good explanation that works its way around. But I feel like too often it's relied upon as kind of like a, just kidding, they weren't really dead, Here's your favorite character and they're back, and it's like,
because the show must go on.
It's like, but that doesn't feel very real, and I feel like it takes away an element of what I find truly enjoyable and good storytelling.
I totally agree. Because that happened in Homeland, right?
Did it?
I think it did. I think he actually, was he not? Maybe not. Maybe I just wanted him to not be dead.
No, I don't think it happened there.
I thought they hung anyway. But what I was gonna say was that I feel like in the scene where Gandalf died, quote unquote dies, where he's taking on the Balrog, I feel like his resurrection is almost foreshadowed in that scene. Do you know? Like, I mean, I was sad when he fell and whatever, but I was like, this can't be the end of him.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I don't know if that's something that Tolkien intended, or it was just my reading of it. I don't know. But I don't think Gandalf's return is bad storytelling. Yeah. At all. I feel like it's, not only did Tolkien defend it well in that letter, but I feel like it was, I just feel like it was foreshadowed a little bit. Mm-hmm. So. Okay. Anyway, this was my 2 cents.
Right on.
For what it's worth.
Well, it's worth something.
Is it?
I'll give you 3 cents for it.
3? Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay.
Congratulations, you made some money off
that. That makes me feel very happy. Just
right.
Like this song makes me feel very happy.
You going first or me?
You go first.
All right.
I'm too busy dancing.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 syllables in haiku.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 syllables in haiku.
Ow.
Oh yeah.
I feel like that was like the CNC Music Factory version.
With Marky Mark.
No, that's the Funky Bunch.
That's right, that's Funky Bunch. Sorry, I'm getting my Oh, man.
I'm
You can't take me
horrible.
anywhere.
Can't take you anywhere. Definitely.
Definitely not on a podcast.
Definitely can't have you on a podcast,
Definitely
man. All right. You want to go first, or you want me to go first?
not. Let's rock, paper, scissors for it.
All right.
Quiet rock, paper, scissors. Golf
Yes.
version.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
Ah, dang it. All right, what do you want to do?
I always win.
You always win. It's not fair.
I'll go first. I have
Good,
two.
'cause I'm too busy
Did
crying
you have two?
over here. No, I only have one.
All right, I'll go first, then you can do one, and then I'll do my next one.
Right on.
Once the Grey Pilgrim, now Gandalf returns in white. Saruman shall fall.
Ooh. Feeling pretty confident in your assessment of the situation.
Yep.
I like Gandalf's back in white.
Mm-hmm.
It's good. I dig it. Well done.
You're up.
Oh, is it my turn?
Mhm.
Okay, here's mine. Fear. Joy. An old friend, now glorified. Saruman, as he should have been.
Nice.
Thanks.
Right on. Right
I was
on.
pretty proud of that one, actually.
That's good.
It was kind of that haiku felt for me like Tolkien described his creation of the Ents.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was just a channel. Like it flowed.
It just flowed through you.
It just flowed. Usually I have to kind of think and stress and mull things over before I get my haiku written, but this one was like, boom, done.
It just happened.
It was just meant to be.
Just happened, people.
It just happened. You heard it first here.
All right, here's my next one.
Okay.
3 comrades searching for signs of hope. What they find, they did not expect.
Dun dun dun. That's good. That was the best cheesy scared face I've ever seen. Seriously, that was really good. I like that a lot.
Right on.
Yeah.
All right, Mary Grace is up.
Mary
she got
Grace.
2. All right. Into deep Fangorn, the hunters follow the road, tracking the hobbits.
Oh yeah, tracking.
Tracking.
If only they had trackers implanted, it would make their job so much easier.
I know.
Come on, Tolkien. Didn't you know about this technology called trackers?
Yeah.
Jeez. It's like you wanted to make it difficult for yourself.
I know.
And Aragorn and Legolas and Gimli. All right, can I read the second one?
Do you just want to go ahead and read the second?
Yeah, I just want to read the second one.
Instead
Okay.
of talking about trackers.
Trackers.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Here's Mary Grace's second one. Look there, spoke the elf. I have not elf eyes. I see. Not Saruman?
Nice.
Very clever.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. I feel like I didn't do it justice, but
Well,
it was good.
you did a good job. That was a good reading.
It was better than it sounded. You post these, right?
Not usually. I think, well, they're usually in the comments on other
Okay.
episodes. Yeah.
I like that one a lot.
Right on.
Very
Good stuff,
good.
Mary Grace.
Yeah.
Well, and like I said, Matt submitted some poems, but I think I'm gonna hold those
right.
till the next episode
Okay.
because I think they'd be more appropriate there.
Okay.
All right. Well,
That
I
sounds
guess
like a
that's all we
plan.
got. I guess that's a wrap on this episode.
It's about time.
Next, haiku for next episode are due on November 30th, which is
The last day of November.
the last day of November, and it's a Wednesday. So, evening of November 30th. Yeah.
Okie dokie.
Get them in.
Do it.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Yes, thanks, guys. Have a happy Thanksgiving
Absolutely.
to you and yours.
And we will talk at you next time.
Yes, we will.
Bye-bye.
Bye, y'all.
Please remember to check out truemyths.org for show notes and plenty of other Tolkien goodness. Also, if you're enjoying the podcast, would you please leave the Tolkien Road a rating and feedback on iTunes? It's a great way to support the show and takes less than a minute. On our next episode, we'll finish our discussion of this chapter. Thanks for listening, and until next time, the road goes ever on.